Welcome back. All right, so yes, and at the start of this, my throat's a little bit scratchy today, and with all the comments I've seen about it, no, he sounds sick. I'm not sick. It's just, I mean, there's allergies. It's that time of year. It's warming up. It's a great time to be alive. I had to keep pausing a video this morning because I kept sneezing. So yeah, it is that time of year, but it reminds me why I don't make videos when I first get up. I make sure I'm fully awake. I make sure that, I'm okay. And if I have to pause a video too many times, I just start it over again. So, into the news of the day. Buddy Robinson been put on waivers by the Anaheim Ducks. Depth forward that we'll see whether or not he clears. He probably does clear. But again, with how unpredictable the waiver wire is and how close we are to the trade deadline, you never know. There might be a team that wants to pick him up. And there's the possibility, too, that if he clears waivers, he gets traded after because it's that time of year for that as well. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. I'm wearing the Anaheim garb because I love this jersey. I know we're not going to see it back again, but a man can dream. Chicago news. I'll start with the GM bit. So the general manager, the newly named as the full-time, getting the interim tag general manager, Kyle Davidson, using the word rebuild, which is one that Jonathan Toews was not a fan of. What was it, 2 years ago? He said, no, we're not doing a rebuild. And Chicago has run things like they're not doing a rebuild, whether it's picking up Seth Jones, picking up Marc-Andre Fleury. The moves that have been made by Chicago are clearly ones with the idea of we are going to get back into the hunt. They have not gotten back into the hunt. So now they have a new GM saying they're looking at a rebuild. Also, according to Elliot Friedman, the reporting he's getting is that Marc-Andre Fleury, it's still more likely that he finishes the year in Chicago, and then they go from there about what they want to do with him. But it does look unlikely that he gets moved at the deadline. Tyler Johnson should be back for their next game. At practice today, he was on a line with Jonathan Toews and Alex DeBrincat, which is interesting to me because DeBrincat and Kane have been so fantastic together. So splitting them up, I guess then you get two scoring lines going, right? So that mentality I can understand. It'll be interesting to see what Chicago does from here. Again, with the general manager using the R word, the rebuild word. That does kind of change things out, and it does mean that they'll finally be doing some selling at the deadline. Washington news. So Carl Hagelin, who was injured at practice yesterday, has had eye surgery, and he's out indefinitely. And they're talking about how it's really important that his vision is back to 100%. So he had surgery yesterday, and he's supposed to get a second opinion today. Seeing another doctor on what to do next, what the next step is for him. So we've seen players, Brian Berard comes to mind, Manny Malhotra comes to mind, who've been involved in incidents that ended up with them having vision problems. It can make it very difficult to continue your NHL career. And so, hopefully Hagelin ends up being okay. Hopefully he can make a 100% recovery in terms of his vision and is able to play hockey. And, so all the best to him. On other Washington news, Anthony Mantha may return tomorrow. So Mantha may be back tomorrow for the Washington Capitals. That'll be big, especially with Hagelin being out. And the fact that Snively is now seen as week to week with an upper body injury that's been bothering him apparently for a while. So getting Mantha back would help quite a bit. Washington, of course, has had a lot of challenges lately. And maybe getting Mantha back in the lineup will turn around some of those challenges. Because Washington, while they should absolutely make the playoffs, they're now 8 points ahead of Columbus. So 8 points is not close, but we're like a bad week for Washington away from it all of a sudden being close, right? So we'll see how Mantha fits in and what the plan is. And again, hopefully we'll know what's going on with Hagelin soon, and he'll be okay. Josh Norris returns tomorrow for the Ottawa Senators as well. Did the video on the Sens today. Norris is a very important forward who is scoring goals at a pretty good clip, and he is one of the key players for the Ottawa Senators going forward. So getting him back will help quite a bit. No word yet on when Batherson's coming back, so Batherson is a ways out. We'll see when he comes back and how that's going to affect things. I think for Ottawa, again, and I mentioned this in the video this morning, next year should definitely be better. And, so getting Norris back in the lineup should help them in the short term. Toronto. So the goaltending carousel continues. Peter Mrazek gets the start tonight. This is his second straight start. I'm okay with this. I'm still a fan of Jack Campbell. I think that, he's had a rough time for the last month, but I also think that they've played him a lot. I think giving him some time off, getting him some time with the goalie coach, getting him some time to depressurize, it's got to help. It is the first time in Campbell's long career that he's been a National Hockey League starting goaltender, and in the pressure cooker that is Toronto, it's a completely different animal. It is one of the toughest jobs in sports. So if Mrazek is able to start some games here and Campbell can get his game back, I think that's the best for Toronto, because again, the regular season's great, but if they don't get it done in the playoffs, it really isn't going to matter. If we see another first round exit for Toronto, things have to change. And it's going to likely mean Jack Campbell. I don't think they would keep Jack Campbell if they lose in the first round again. And I say that because Campbell's a UFA this summer. He's likely going to want a pretty decent bump. And so Toronto may look at that and say, we want to get over the top. We haven't got out of the first round. And then, I don't know, what do you do? Like, if Fleury ends up becoming a UFA out of Chicago, does Toronto make him an offer? Does Toronto make an offer to Marc-Andre Fleury? Is that the world we're going to live in? And again, pure speculation on my part, but the goaltending story in Toronto, I don't think we're done talking about it for the next little while. And we'll see if there's any truth to any of the rumors out there regarding Toronto, which are usually quite plentiful at this time of year. But if anything regarding a goaltender comes to pass, right? So we've talked about the KHL and a couple of teams opting out. What's going on now is that a lot of the players who are foreign-born playing in the KHL are terminating their contracts to come home. Totally understood. And so they're returning home. This is going to create kind of a chaos in the playoffs because some of these players are very prominent players in the KHL. And there's concern as well about the viability of the KHL for next season. The sanctions that have been taken have taken the ruble, and they've made it worth, I think it's half its value of what it was before all this took place. So that's a lot of money that goes. And so we'll see what happens with the KHL for next year. But the playoffs are wildly unpredictable now, with some really key guys saying we're just going to go home. So we'll keep an eye on that. Boston. So Jake DeBrusk still wants out, because every time he has a big game, that question gets asked again. His agent's saying no. He still wants to get out. So what's interesting with DeBrusk is that he does have a $4.4 million qualifying offer as a restricted free agent in order to retain his rights, right? So there are teams that don't like the $4.4 million qualifying offer. It's a lesser version of the Brock Besser problem. Brock Besser has a $7.5 million qualifying offer that's required for any team that would pick up Besser and just, let his contract runs out. If you want to keep him as an RFA, you have to give him that $7.5 million qualifier. But the agent for Jake DeBrusk also indicating that his client would be willing to work out an extension with another team before he's traded to that team. Sort of a sign and trade. So we may see that. I wouldn't be too surprised if that was the case with Brock Besser as well. That being said, I don't think Besser's going at the deadline. I get the feeling with how close the Canucks are that if they stay that way, we may just see the Canucks hold on to everybody through the deadline, and then at the end of the season start making some big changes, right? Just leave it as it is through the deadline, see how it plays out, and then after the season, then you start making some big moves. So we'll see whether or not DeBrusk can figure this out. But yeah, he wants out of Boston. He has shown he can play, he can score. He's got a lot of talent. The consistency's been an issue. I know there are fans of the Bruins that complain about certain things with his game as well, but I like DeBrusk. I think a team picking up DeBrusk at the right price is getting a decent top 6, maybe top 9 forward, right? Depending on how they use him and how much depth they have. The Flyers are trying to re-sign Ristolainen. So Elliot Friedman last week reported that he was likely to be dealt, and now he's hearing that the Flyers are trying to re-sign him first. So they apparently like their blue line as is. Obviously, they haven't had a chance to see how it works with Ellis enough this year, but they feel like they should be okay on the blue line, but they need to figure out if Ristolainen's going to stick around at a reasonable cap hit, and if not, then he may end up getting moved at the deadline. So they're working on some kind of an extension with Risto. We'll see whether or not they get that done. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happen upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.